This image right here is seared into my brain. It's a glitched out Becky Lynch looking like a Cenobite from Hellraiser. It's scary, it's freaking hilarious, but most importantly, it represents the absolute catastrophe that was WWE 2K20. Ukes, the dev team behind the SmackDown series since the start, was allegedly dumped by 2K after the release of WWE 2K18 because 2K wanted to put more features into the game that were proving successful in other sports games. Yeah, you probably know what that means. WWE 2K19 came out and toed the line of the entries that came before it. And then came WWE 2K20. It was dead on arrival. The game was crawling with bugs and glitches. No matter what the rest of the game had going for it, it didn't matter. Glitch compilations were aplenty. As for the other stuff the game did have, well...
Everyone already knows Hothead Red, but let me introduce you to her best friend, Trey. Get it? Because he busted his butt on a lunch tray.
The situation was so bad, 2K actually forewent cashing in on the fanbase and didn't release WWE 2K21. This usually only happens if a game is completely borked beyond repair. So here we are, WWE 2K is back, and oh boy.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
Okay, so there are plenty of things still wrong with it, but I can say with confidence that the series ain't dead yet. Here's my review of WWE 2K22. The most important thing to talk about with this latest entry is the change to gameplay. Simply put, the game is faster, snappier, and easier. You no longer have to worry about limited reversals. I felt like I was in much more control because I could always counter my opponent. Well, almost always. There's a stun meter that fills up as a result of taking punishment. When that fills up, you're unable to counter anything your opponent throws at you. Even still, you can use reversals for the rest of the 90% of the match. There are guessing reversals that you have to pull off, but most of the time you're just hitting the triangle button, so it's pretty simple. This also makes matches way easier, especially if you're good at the timing of the reversals. Normally, I would never really feel a need to pump the difficulty up to Legendary, but I do here. The AI is also way more aggressive, meaning that they won't just be standing around waiting for you to attack anymore. You can also turn the reversal prompts off to give yourself more of a challenge. Strike animations have been sped up, and this gives me deja vu of WWE 2K14. Strikes look and work very similarly to that game, which is widely considered one of the best of the 2K era, so I guess that wasn't a bad idea. It definitely makes matches more exciting, but it looks horrendous to me. Speaking of looking horrendous, the wonky physics are still here. These moments are most evident in any type of match with weapons, especially ladder matches, but you can still see some pretty messed up stuff with wrestler limbs or ring ropes. Collision detection is also pretty annoying in certain situations. You'll throw a drop kick, your feet will hit the opponent, but it doesn't register that you've made any connection with them. Bad stuff aside, the game is undeniably more fun to play, and if we can't have both fun and nice looking gameplay, at least it's fun. But I'll admit, I'm a modes guy. I can play any game with mediocre gameplay for a very long time if the modes are compelling to play through. So, are the modes in WWE 2K22 compelling? Well, that's actually a pretty difficult question to answer. This here 2K22 is a pretty deceiving game, in both good and bad ways. I'll try to explain. GM mode is back. I fully admit that I was one of those annoying bring back GM mode guys for many, many years. GM mode was my life from 2005 to 2007. When I heard that WWE 2K22 was bringing back the mode after a 15-year hiatus, I was in heaven. And then we got more info on it, and my expectations fell through the floor. The mode looked more limited than the original GM mode did. You could only book singles and tag matches, you could only play through 1 year max, no trades, only 2 titles per show. I was pretty disheartened, not gonna lie. In fact, that nearly killed this review from even happening. And then, I played it. And you know what? It's actually pretty fun. Would I have preferred all of that stuff I mentioned? Sure. But what we do have here is actually pretty well designed. Working within the limitations of the mode accentuates the challenge of beating the other general manager, which can be another human user or it can be an AI opponent. You start by selecting an existing GM or using a custom one. Each GM comes with their own boost, so it actually does matter who you choose. Once that's settled, it's time to draft. You build your roster with popularity, style, disposition, and budget in mind. Once your roster is together, it's time to start booking. The goal is to beat the other show in ratings by whatever means necessary. Building rivalries and booking specialty matches will help boost match and show ratings, and there are many modifiers in play, all working in tandem to impact your weekly report. Power cards are the hero of this mode. These cards can be purchased with money out of your weekly budget, or they can be earned by completing Triple H's weekly challenges, which can be anything from keeping a certain wrestler off your show for that week, to booking a certain wrestler in the main event. You can use these power cards to get free production services, force the opposing GM to keep a wrestler off their show, boost the popularity of one of your roster members, essentially giving them a big push, no cost for signing a WWE legend, and more. This really spices up the otherwise dull limitations put on you. You also get contacted by the wrestlers themselves. Sometimes they'll ask you to pair them up with a certain wrestler, or maybe they'll demand a match with someone that's pissed them off lately. You can even get messages from wrestlers on the other brand asking to jump ship to your show if their morale falls low enough. Contract negotiations, while not deep, give you some flexibility. Sometimes you can convince a star to take a lower amount at the risk of decreasing their morale. There are some balancing issues, however, especially when it comes to stamina. As you would probably guess, booking wrestlers in special match types, tables, extreme rules, TLC, and Hell in a Cell are your choices here, will decrease their stamina more than a regular match. If this stamina gets too low, the wrestler will be at a higher risk of injury. All that makes sense, and I'm cool with that. Unfortunately, championship matches also reduce stamina at higher rates, which I guess kind of makes sense if you make the case that wrestlers try harder when the title is on the line, but I didn't know this until it was too late, and by the time Charlotte and Rhea Ripley had their third title match, Charlotte was unusable for over a month while I waited for her stamina to crawl back to safe levels. Well, I guess I could have used her, but big chance of injury. The last thing I want to mention about MyGM before we move on is that while I do think the mode is fun to play, I really had a tough time pulling myself away from it. When you get to the end of your playtime, it just kind of falls flat. I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was a very rewarding experience in the end. If it just kept going and there were retirement and all that to keep me involved, I'd probably still be playing it, but right now, I feel like I've seen what I needed to see, and that's that. This year, the MyRise mode takes center stage as the career mode. And from what I was seeing from early buzz, it looked to be pretty varied when it came to storylines you could come across. It was getting pretty good word of mouth, so I was hopeful. Except, it's not really a career mode. I mean, it makes you think it's a career mode from the very start. You create your own wrestler, assign them some attributes, and start at the WWE Performance Center. You're presented with some choices early on, and it appears that things branch, and they do. However, throughout your playthrough, you'll soon realize that this is more of a showcase mode with a created wrestler than it is a true career mode. Everybody will have the same storylines to hunt down, and while your experience can differ depending on how thorough you are and whether you win your matches or not, it's still just a series of preset matches. It's not like you're living in a dynamic and procedural WWE world here. That's not to say it's a bad experience though. In short spurts, I did have fun with it, and I was intrigued by what kind of storyline would pop up next. They try to vary the opponents for you, even if that means wrestling dream matches. And no, I'm not talking dream match like Bret Hart versus Bryan Danielson. I'm talking like matches in your dreams.
Imagination.
You can earn attribute points for your character for winning your feuds, and sometimes you'll be thrown cosmetic items or other rewards like arenas. It's a fine mode, but playing with the same wrestler over and over got pretty old for me pretty quickly. Even if it was my own creation, and even if I did have the ability to change the moveset at any time. The mode I was least interested in going into WWE 2K22 ended up being one of my favorite modes, and that's the card collecting Ultimate Team clone, MyFaction. This mode very well may be the reason Ukes is no longer working with 2K these days, if rumors are to be believed. 2K wanted desperately to get their microtransaction mode into the game, and here it is. It's pretty typical for a card collecting mode. You have your huge list of preset challenges to work through, along with weekly challenges and a faction warfare mode, which is all about 8-man tag matches. You build your team with the cards you collect, and you can have 4 women and 4 men active at one time. You can also make several teams to switch to on the fly. Manager cards offer boosts to certain wrestlers depending on who the manager is, so making sure you pair the right kind of manager to the right style of wrestler makes a bit of a difference. You earn MyFaction points to spend on card packs to unlock new members for your team, and you can also earn tokens which you can trade straight across for cards from a set. Collect the whole set, you get a reward. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a franchise guy, so you might be saying, "Hey Lex, I thought you hated card modes." That's actually not completely true. While I do hate what they represent, with the encouragement to spend real money on digital currency and whatnot, I actually think these modes are very well designed. They have to be, because they have to hook the player to want to stay in the mode and eventually spend money. Thankfully, I have a sliver of willpower and I'm never tempted to spend anything on these modes. I just enjoy them as much as I can until I hit that inevitable microtransaction wall. With all that being said, I think MyFaction is the most interesting way to play this game. For one, it constantly rewards you, not just for winning matches, but for completing specific objectives for each match, encouraging you to mix up how you wrestle. Secondly, it urges you to use different wrestlers. While you can use one wrestler for the most part, and it does reward you for doing that too, there will be challenges that force you to use more than one card. I think it's a fun way to experiment using wrestlers you might not have otherwise used. Raquel Gonzalez became one of my favorite wrestlers in the game to use because of this. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely gross that you can spend $100 on digital currency for this mode in a game you just spent $70 for. It's gross that you can even spend $5 in this mode, but if this is the only game you play all year and you want to dump extra money into it, that's your choice. I should also mention the odd fact that this mode is missing an online component. You do have to be online to play it. How else are you going to give 2K your hard-earned cash for their stacks of gold.png? But you can't fight against anyone online. And personally, that's more than okay with me, as I avoid online play in most every game, but that is something that most other sports games have when it comes to these kinds of modes. And it's not present in WWE 2K22. The rest of the menu is filled out by Showcase and Universe mode. You're probably familiar with Showcase mode if you've played any WWE 2K game. It acts as a compilation of a certain wrestler's greatest matches. You play through each of the hand-picked bouts, completing objectives in each match. This time, the Showcase focuses on Rey Mysterio. The matches switch between gameplay and real footage of the match, with Rey narrating what his mindset was during each moment in a kayfabe way. Honestly, there's really not much to say about this mode. Some of the matches are definitely worthy of a Mysterio showcase, but some are just baffling. A lot of this has to do with licensing, which is understandable to some extent, but not having guys like Psychosis or Dean Malenko involved is pretty disappointing. The sound mixing is also really bad, so whenever Rey starts talking, you have to turn up the volume, and when he stops talking, the volume is then way too loud. Universe is pretty much the same as it's been for a while now, a sandbox mode for you to book your own shows and customize to your heart's content. There is one difference, that being the ability to lock on to one wrestler and play through Universe like a career mode. It's got some nice options for you to mess around with, and it gives you a way to direct your career, but it's pretty damn dull. The Creation Suite returns with the ability to create wrestlers, championships, arenas, and all that good stuff. And you can now download cross-platform creations. You can also upload custom menu select renders to make your created wrestlers feel more natural compared to the real ones in the game. Alright, it's time to slap a score on this sucker and send it home. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs in my short time with WWE 2K22, disinterest, hopefulness, disappointment, and satisfaction. 2K22 is a redemption for the series, no doubt. This is the best entry in the series since 2K16, and even then, the argument could be made that this is better than that. However, there's still a lot of work to be done to get this series to the point that many wrestling fans want to see it. But I do think they're on the upswing now. Can they keep that momentum going forward? Only time will tell. For now, wrestling fans finally have a game they can have fun with again. I give WWE 2K22 3.5 stars out of 5. Hey, thanks for watching this review. Let me know what score you'd give the game down in the comments below, and check out some of the other vids on this channel if you like what you saw. A sub and a like would be greatly appreciated to help the channel grow, and I hope y'all have a good rest of your day. Until next time, this is Lex, signing off.